Hello, beauty and aesthetic enthusiast. What an honor it is to be with you all for the NMSA 2021 virtual workshop. My name is Grant Holmes with the NMSA Legislation Department and the Oath Commissioner. I recently swore in many of our new NMSA official community board members. Today, I'll be covering all of the new mandates set for 2022 non-invasive aesthetic professionals. You'll learn the latest implementations recently set by the Board of Cosmetology and Board of Medicine. It is our mission to ensure that members fully understand their scope of practice and remain compliant. We pride ourselves on being an advocate for this community by understanding laws, regulations, and the mandates set by governing boards. We also want to ensure our members are well represented when these official boards send intimidation documents such as citations. Our advocacy department will rally on your behalf to ensure your investments are protected and that fines and penalties are not served to you due to official lack of knowledge or misuse of verbiage indicated by entities who do not hold jurisdiction within the non-invasive community. During this presentation, we'll navigate through the websites and regulation bulletins of several boards to ensure everyone has a broad understanding of what most governing boards are requiring. One of the most commonly asked questions has been, do I need to be a cosmetologist or esthetician to perform body sculpting? Here I have a bulletin from the California Board of Cosmetology. I'll read through it and elaborate on each paragraph. As it states, the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology does not approve or regulate equipment or products used in the barbering or beauty industry. Consequently, the board provides no opinion on the contemplated use of any machine a licensee is considering for purchase. In reference to this statement, the Board of Cosmetology has no further jurisdiction of non-invasive aesthetic equipment or the use of it. The Barbering and Cosmetology Act defines the scope of practice of cosmetology and its specialty branch of skincare. California Business and Professional Code Section 7316, Parts B and C. A person licensed as a cosmetologist or esthetician is required to limit their practice and service rendered to the public to only those areas for which they're licensed. In Section 7317, the Act confers no authority to practice medicine or surgery. In Section 7320, the board's regulations specifically prohibit invasive procedures which result in the removal, destruction, incision, or piercing of a client's skin beyond the epidermis, or the application of electricity which visibly contracts the muscle. Finally, Title 16 of the California Code of Regulations says, licensed cosmetologists and estheticians are cautioned not to engage in any invasive procedure. Let's elaborate a little further. The Board of Cosmetology defines their scope of practice as only skin care or health care or hair care. Individuals who hold a cosmetology license or esthetician license are limited to offering only the services taught during their schooling. Please note, cosmetology schools do not offer any body sculpting modalities. In fact, the Board of Cosmetology limits those individuals to performing services only in the areas which they're licensed. The use of electrical stimulation in providing skincare services falls within the practice of an esthetician under certain conditions. So long as the machines providing the electrical stimulation do not deliver an electrical current that will visibly contract the muscles of the body or face and/or result in the destruction or removal of the skin below the client's epidermis. The machine's parameters must be set to stimulate the muscle, not to contract the muscle. We are often asked if an esthetician license will cover most non-invasive aesthetic services, and the answer is provided in this paragraph. Estheticians providing skincare services can only practice under the above conditions. Please take note to the words skincare, as they imply services of the face and not the body. In a nutshell, estheticians are not licensed to offer body sculpting services. Let's move on. The board understands that the following machines and devices, while used in a proper current range, may not constitute an invasive procedure: galvanic, current, microcurrent, high frequency current, ultrasonic, low frequency and low powered, topical devices intended for skin cleaning, exfoliation, and product application of LED devices in the 410 to 945 nanometer range. Please notice that in the above paragraph, radio frequency has not been mentioned. This means that non-invasive aesthetic professionals are no longer allowed to use radio frequency during any procedure. If you want to read more information about this topic, visit the California Board of Cosmetology website. We'll now take a glance at the regulations for Nevada. This question was asked by an individual seeking clarification as a Nevada business owner. And here's the question. I'm starting a body contouring business, and I'd like to know the regulations. I received a certificate for waist trainer as well as non-invasive body contouring. I was wondering whether I could do the business from home. Do I need to have a permit and business license? Do I need both? And here's Nevada's response. Yes, there is no required certification for body sculpting because it is non-invasive. You can do cavitation from home, and you do need a business license. You also need a seller's permit if you sell any products along with the body contouring. You can obtain spa insurance surety bond for from about $150 down as low as $50 a month. Excuse me. In conclusion, they also provided the NAICS code 812-199, which confirms that body sculpting or any non-invasive aesthetic services is classified as other personal care services. So what is a NAICS code? The North American Industry Classification System is the standard used by federal statistical agencies in classifying business establishments for the purpose of collecting, analyzing, and publishing statistical data related to the U.S. business economy. Let's have a look at the NAICS code 812-199. This U.S. industry code includes establishment primarily engaged in providing personal care services, except for hair, nail, facial, non-permanent makeup, non-medical diet, and weight-reducing services. Illustrative examples: day spas, depilatory or electrolysis, such as hair removal, salons, saunas, ear piercing services, steam or Turkish baths, hair replacement, except by offices of physicians, or weaving services, tanning salons, massage parlors, tattoo parlors, and permanent makeup salons. A secondary cross-reference code is 812-191 for diet and weight-reducing centers. This code includes establishments primarily engaged in providing non-medical services to assist clients in attaining or maintaining a desired weight. The sale of weight reduction products, such as food supplements, may be an integral component of the program. These services typically include individual or group counseling, menu and exercise planning, and weight and body measurement monitoring. Now that you have a deeper understanding of licensing ramifications, let's take a look at a citation from the California Board of Cosmetology that was given to an individual who holds a cosmetology salon license. The letter indicates that the services that were being offered fall under the Business and Professional Code 7320, which is the practice of medicine. The letter continues to state that the procedures being performed do not fall under the scope of the California's Board of Cosmetology, and no licensee that holds a cosmetology or esthetician license can perform the following services: ultrasound, radiofrequency, cupping, cavitation, light and heat, energy, and lasers. They continued to state that according to the Medical Board of California, only physicians may use lasers or intense pulse light devices. Let's take a look at their website to understand what is considered lasers or intense pulse light devices. Here it states, physicians may use lasers or intense pulse light devices to remove hair, spider veins, and tattoos. In addition, physician assistants and registered nurses, not licensed vocational nurses, may use lasers or intense pulse light devices to perform these procedures under a physician's supervision. Unlicensed medical assistants, licensed vocational nurses, cosmetologists, electrologists, or estheticians may not legally perform these treatments under any circumstances, nor may registered nurses or physician's assistants without the supervision of a physician. Referencing the statement made on this citation, the Board of Cosmetology intentionally removed the full description of what the medical board implied. This is why we rally on your behalf to ensure that you are not required to pay fines when the misinterpretation of information is given. One of our advocates made a call to the Board of Cosmetology on this individual's behalf. And due to security reasons, we cannot play the call, but we can state what was said. The advocate questioned the enforcement division of the Board of Cosmetology about the citation stating that the use of a cavitation machine was a medical device and only a physician can use it. The enforcement division reply was that any licensee who holds a cosmetology or esthetician license cannot perform any service with the use of cavitation, cupping, radiofrequency, or any service that non-invasive aesthetic practitioners can perform. According to the enforcement division, any cosmetology licensee who wishes to offer non-invasive aesthetic services will be required to perform at a separate location from the licensed salon, or they may terminate their cosmetology or esthetician license. No cosmetology or salon license can be present at the time of inspection. Furthermore, the Board of Cosmetology holds no jurisdiction over any non-invasive aesthetics procedure. Understanding and knowing your rights within this industry is imperative. Be aware that information you receive from individuals who usually pass down information that has not been validated. The National Medspa Association was established in 2017 as a result of the lack of professional, independent inspections of non-invasive aesthetic practitioners and/or training providers, and to ensure that the consumer has a choice in the area of non-surgical aesthetic treatments. It was essential that a set standard was met as a minimum requirement and that the introduction of NMSA occupational standards was critical. This would ensure a fair and equal chance of success for all practitioners and/or training providers offering this type of treatment. It's time to put an end to the unregulated marketplace where practicing non-invasive aesthetic treatments without proper training or experience is permitted. The NMSA will carry out inspections of the practitioner and/or training provider premises from where they operate. The NMSA is working to seek fit-for-purpose, high self-regulation of the non-invasive aesthetic industry to include all those who are offering this as non-invasive aesthetic treatment to the public. NMSA is hoping to eliminate the wandering practitioner and trainer provider who goes without inspection or who has no responsibility to the public. The inspectorate body will ensure that any inspected practitioners work to a certain standard and criteria and operate from a designated premises. When the public sees the NMSA inspected sign, they will know that the practitioner and/or training provider has met with the inspection requirements. This will include inspection of the premises in line with the recognized code of practice, which includes business operation, quality, cleanliness, and hygiene, as well as practical administration of the treatment and overall business practice. The NMSA is committed to quality, and they are the only inspectorate body that is externally audited to the non-invasive aesthetic scope. When non-invasive aesthetic practitioners and/or training providers are inspected by the NMSA, the consumer can be assured that the provider of choice has complied with a criteria and standard that meets occupational standards. The NMSA is open to being involved with any standard improvements and will be working with like-minded organizations to establish high-quality, controlled performance, transparent standards, and a level playing ground for all qualified and inspected practitioners and/or training providers of the non-invasive aesthetic industry. The NMSA seeks a high level of self-regulation, with expectations that the government may recognize one national standard for practitioners and/or training providers working in the area of non-invasive aesthetics. Understanding NMSA licensing. This organization protects and covers investments of non-invasive aesthetic professionals, ensuring you're on the right side of the law and running a successful, reputable business that's great for service and for safety. We offer several licensing types that accommodate the level of your experience. The National Medspa Association is an independent international trade association and advocate for the non-invasive aesthetic practitioners and training providers. We work alongside the boards of medicine, electrology, cosmetology, pharmaceuticals, and other regulators such as OSHA and HIPAA and the Board of Health and Safety to ensure members are remaining compliant. Our rigorous processes require members to uphold the highest professional standards required by OSHA, HIPAA, and the Board of Health and Safety. Our accredited training providers undergo thorough curriculum evaluations to ensure their students have adequate knowledge to be successful while remaining compliant. The continued success of the non-invasive aesthetic industry, as well as the growth of the consumer demand for aesthetic services, is strongly linked to having safe, high-quality aesthetic practices that comply with federal, state, and local laws. Damage to the industry's reputation occurs every time a patient is harmed, either by poorly trained or improperly supervised individuals, or by media reports demonstrating a lack of understanding of the basic rules that govern the provision, delegation, and supervision of non-invasive aesthetic treatments. More than a decade of consistent industry growth throughout the United States, there is a lack in the consistency of rules across state lines. Laws differ from state to state, treatment to treatment, and provider to provider, making it difficult to provide a uniform and clear framework for aesthetic procedures that are in practice in good faith, intending to be compliant with all applicable laws. The National Medspa Association has prepared a set of guidelines aimed at providing a framework that will serve as a standard for which all non-invasive aesthetic practices will safely operate, irrespective of their state. These guidelines are meant to describe a way compliant, non-invasive spas should operate. Given that different states have different rules for different treatments and practitioners, there naturally may be conflict between these guidelines and certain state regulations. To resolve any differences, the NMSA recommends that more restrictive approach be taken in instances where the differences exist. In states where the laws or rules are not as strict as the guidelines should be followed. In states with stricter rules, the stricter state rules should be observed. One further note, the terms medical spa, non-invasive aesthetic practice, and medical aesthetic practice are used interchangeably throughout these guidelines. But to be clear, there is a legal difference between a medical spa and a non-invasive aesthetic practice. One offers medical aesthetic services, while the other does not. And both are subject to different state and federal regulations. The term non-invasive refers to only the fact that the aesthetic medical services offered are non-surgical in nature. Licensed medical professionals such as NPs, PAs, RNs, LVNs, and LPNs must adhere to their professional scopes of practice and follow the direction of their respective licensing boards. In addition to acting within their statutory scope of practice, all licensed professionals must receive training for the specific services they are delegated as defined in these guidelines. Except where specifically noted, these professionals perform their services under the delegated authority and supervision of a medical director. Non-invasive aesthetic professionals, such as body workers, level 1 and level 2 non-invasive aesthetic practitioners, and post-operative care providers, must adhere to professional scopes of practice and follow the direction of an MSA licensing board. In addition to acting within their statutory scope of practice, all licensed professionals must receive accredited training for the specific services they are delegated, as defined in these guidelines. Except where specifically noted, these professionals perform their services under the delegated authority and supervision of a medical director. Estheticians and cosmetologists may provide services in accordance with their statutory scope of practice as permitted by their professional licensing boards. Some states expressly permit estheticians to provide certain skin treatments that would otherwise be considered aesthetic medical procedures, master estheticians. In these instances, these treatments may be provided in a medical spa with the approval of a medical director and in compliance with the respective state cosmetology board requirements. While estheticians and cosmetologists are restricted from performing any medical treatments, in some instances, they may be dually trained as MAs and may perform certain treatments under direct supervision. However, under no circumstances are estheticians or cosmetologists permitted to perform aesthetic injectable treatments, such as fillers, neuromodulators, or the insertion of PDO threads. Moreover, they can perform non-invasive aesthetic services under the NMSA by obtaining a level 1 or level 2 license at a discounted rate with proof of a cosmetology license. The core of non-invasive med spa services are aesthetic procedures meant to enhance the patient's appearance or improve their health and wellness. While the procedures tend to be less invasive than those typically offered at a plastic surgeon's office, they are not without risk. Therefore, they must be provided with the same professional skill and care afforded to all medical procedures. The consistent element of aesthetic medical procedures that differentiates them from non-medical services is their effect on living tissue. Services offered at a medical aesthetic practice alter or destroy the patient's living tissue, whereas non-medical procedure affects only the non-living surface of the skin. Accordingly, as new technology and new treatments are introduced to the market, a med spa and its practitioners should always fall back on the mechanism under which the treatment achieves the desired result. Does the treatment achieve the result by altering or destroying living tissue? If so, it is considered a medical treatment. Does the treatment's mechanism impact tissue deeper than the stratum corneum? If the answer is yes, it is a medical treatment. How the treatment delivers the mechanism of the action is of secondary consideration. What that mechanism of action does to the body is what is important for purposes of being labeled a medical procedure. In other words, if the result of its action is to alter living tissue, even if it does not physically touch living tissue, it's a medical treatment. Cavitation, for example, does not fire a laser or energy into tissue, thereby making it a non-invasive aesthetic treatment. Examples of non-invasive aesthetic procedures. The following is a non-exhaustive list of categories of non-invasive aesthetic procedures. Please note that this list is extremely broad and may not cover recently released techniques and devices. ultrasonic devices, radio frequency RF devices, heating or cryolipolysis devices, electrical stimulation, intense pulsed light IPL procedures between 500 and 1200 nanometers, invasive aesthetics, microneedling of any depth, injection of soft tissue fillers, polydioxanone threads, intravenous therapy, dermabrasion beneath the stratum corneum, medium depth chemical peels beneath the stratum corneum. Medical spas do not exclusively offer non-medical services. Medical spas may offer services that are complementary to their medical services. These may include services that are regulated under the NMSA Board of Non-Invasive Aesthetics or the Board of Cosmetology statutes, or permanent makeup services that fall under the state laws on tattooing. Non-medical treatments include, but are not limited to, skin exfoliation, light chemical peels, microcurrent therapy, water dermabrasion devices, microblading, and cosmetic tattooing. Non-medical procedures do not need to be provided by medical professionals. However, for medical spas to be compliant with these guidelines, any of these complementary non-medical services must be provided in accordance with state law. This may require employing licensed non-invasive aesthetic practitioners, cosmetologists, or estheticians. Some states have taken measures to define treatments so that they either automatically become medical treatments or are statutorily defined as non-medical treatments. The most prominent example of this is laser hair removal, which has been regulated as an individual treatment by approximately 9 states. However, other states, such as New York, have conspicuously excluded laser hair removal, thereby making it essentially unregulated. Irrespective of the designation by each state, the purpose of these guidelines is to provide national consistency for the industry. Therefore, the NMSA recommends that regardless of whether a state has a designated treatment non-medical, if it falls under the definition of a medical procedure, that is, it impacts or affects living tissue, medical aesthetic practices should regard it as a medical treatment. Accordingly, in a state such as New York that does not regulate laser hair removal, NMSA recommends that it be regarded as a medical treatment unless the wavelength is between 500 and 1200 nanometers. This form of self-regulation is not only safer for the public, but it provides international consistency and predictability across the industry. Before considering licensing, one should seek out the appropriate training. Every provider, whether licensed or unlicensed, must have appropriate training in the treatments they provide. Specific training varies from procedure to procedure, but at a minimum, it must include a hands-on practical component in addition to didactic instruction. The training should provide significant information on identifying and addressing complications or adverse incidents, in addition to the direct techniques and theories of the procedure. Introductory type training, as often provided by device manufacturers, can make up a component of a provider's training, but cannot be the sole source of instruction. All persons should maintain and develop their acquired skills through periodic additional training or directly supervised demonstrations. It is the practitioner's responsibility to ensure each training provider is accredited and have a successful training track record. Before purchasing any training course, we recommend asking the provider for student referrals to ensure you'll receive the best training possible. And when in doubt, you can always contact us for additional information or NMSA accredited training provider recommendations. The NMSA accredited training providers undergo a rigorous curriculum evaluation that requires training providers to incorporate the following information: laws and regulations, HIPAA and OSHA, licensing regulations, business regulations, liability insurance, reporting and patient care, CPR, AED, and first aid, bloodborne pathogens, infection control, anatomy of the body and skin, and vital signs. Our accredited training providers offer a sense of security, knowing that the livelihood of your business is always placed at the forefront. As a result of a steadfast commitment to providing this excellence, we pride ourselves on ensuring our members feel more credible through our verified certification system that allows employers and students the ability to verify in a certification that it is indeed authentic. Our licensing bureau also uses this same system to verify workers' permits and NMSA licensing. Let's take a little deeper dive into our licensing membership types. Our 2022 academic program is categorized into several levels. Level 1, practitioners. Individuals offering any basic non-invasive aesthetic services will be required to obtain a Level 1 practitioner's license. This license covers electric services that include the following: galvanic current, thermolysis, low energy radio frequency, ultrasonics used for therapeutic purposes, heat therapy, such as saunas for which the heat is below 40 degrees Celsius, and services such as body sculpting, RF skin tightening, or electrotherapy. Level 2 practitioners. Individuals offering any mastery non-invasive aesthetic services will be required to obtain a Level 2 license. This license covers services that use the following devices: laser-based devices such as non-ablative, non-vaporizing lasers for hair removal, wavelengths not to exceed 1200 nanometers, non-ablative, non-vaporizing lasers for the treatment of skin in wavelengths not to exceed 1200 nanometers, and light-based devices such as LEDs, intense pulse light therapy for hair removal, intense pulse light therapy for the treatment of skin, and intense pulse light oral lamps. Services such as IPL, HIFU, or oral teeth whitening. All licensing can be purchased annually or biannually. Training providers who wish to provide any of the training courses will be required to select the appropriate licensing level to gain proper accreditation. Accreditation cost is included in the educator's licensing membership. The benefits of becoming NMSA accredited are: there is a large range of benefits that accreditation helps you to get ahead of the competition and gain market share by using the accreditation process to benchmark yourself against the best practices and improve your client's proposition. Build your reputation and be known as a premier provider by using the NMSA standards office logos, certificates, and web listing. Expand into new markets by attracting professionals and organizations that need to purchase training and development activities which meet formal NMSA requirements. Get involved to our members. Get invited to our member networking events to listen to relevant market updates and gain insight. Demonstrate to your customers that you are adopting new technologies with our digital certificate service using blockchain technology. Stand out from the crowd. Working with our market-leading training organization, we have curated and developed a gold standard NMSA accreditation. Differentiating yourself in a crowded training market is becoming increasingly challenging, and our accreditation evidence-based system denotes a positive reputation and credibility. This is because all our accreditations are assessed by a criteria-based methodology, which is also steered by an expert advisory board. All of this will give your clients and delegates the assurance you want them to have, so they will keep coming back for more. Gain the recognition you deserve and become licensed and accredited today. Use the code word workshop at checkout to receive 10% off. This code is only valid for the next 48 hours. It was a pleasure speaking to you all today, and we look forward to more engaging events that will expand the growth of this community. Thank you for tuning in. I'm now going to pass this meeting over to Valerie Kearns, who will be discussing our NASFA funding and NMSA banking program. Valerie?